I got injured in both of those World Cups. So 1982 was a good World Cup for me because I scored the quickest goal in World Cup history at that time against France, and we won 3-1. I scored a couple of goals, and my wife gave birth that evening to my second daughter. So I was classed it as a hat-trick. So yeah, it was great memories out. But with Sir Bowie, I dislocated my shoulder in the second game in Mexico, and so the Maradona hand, God goal, and all that. I mean, I wish I'd been playing because he would never have scored the second goal. But unfortunately, that happened. And then,
did you watch that game in person? Where were you?
No, I didn't actually go back to England. I stayed. Bobby Robson wanted me to stay with the squad, and so I stayed with the squad, which Ron Atkinson, my manager at Man United at the time, he wasn't happy with. But I thought being part of the squad and sort of like being the captain, you needed to try and sort of like encourage the boys and get them to do better. And so I stayed, and then unfortunately we got beat 2-1 in the quarterfinal against Argentina. So I had that scenario, but then in 1990, Man United won the FA Cup final, and so I was full of confidence going into the Italian World Cup. Second game, snapped my Achilles tendon, and the specialist said to me, he said, Bryan, it was just wear and tear over the years. It could have happened 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, 10 years, but it just happened to go in the second game against Holland. So I missed that as well when the lads got to the semi-final. So massive disappointment for me, but
so you had the pain of
great
injuries
memories.
and the pain of missing out.
Especially second time round. In Mexico, I always knew there was a weakness with my shoulder, but myself and Bobby Robson were willing to take that chance and put me in the squad. But in 1990, I felt great going into the World Cup. So that was the biggest disappointment in my career.
Are you comfortable talking about the injuries a little bit? And I want to take it from the standpoint of how, as coaches, it's become such an emphasis on how to limit injuries with all the different signs and platforms we have like that. I'm assuming you didn't have the same sort of availability to those tools. And do you think, though, that that might have helped? And then we'll get to your playing style, which I suppose also contributed to the. But I think that could have helped you.
I think we can actually miss out what the medical people do for you now, because the way I tackled, I mean, it was competitive, and it was 3 broken legs all in tackles. But then once I broke my leg the 3rd time, I got cute. Then I started to be quite a nasty player, but you could get away with it in that time. Wouldn't get away with it in today's game. But you learn your lessons, because I just thought 3rd time I broke my leg, I just thought nobody's going to break my leg again. So you've got to be a lot cuter and cleverer. But the other injuries, you know, I didn't. It wasn't sort of muscle injuries or anything like that, or fitness regime that you know, you missed out on, because, like, I prided myself on being a great trainer, and so I worked as hard as I possibly could under the coaches and the fitness coaches to make sure that I was really fit when I went into any sort of game or competition.
I wanted to ask you about early on in your career, maybe even as a youth player. You described yourself as very small in stature. And here in the States, you know, we discuss that a little bit as coaches, that sometimes little players get missed because they don't have that athletic build,
Slender. And you even said, I would have to start growing and quickly. And you talked about the club had you drinking Guinness. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Put on weight?
Yes. and that's why
How old were
when...
you? You were like 14 years old or something, weren't you?
Oh no, not that.
Oh, okay.
No, this is when I went to West Brom and I was an apprentice. And I wasn't a drinker. Well, I was very young, so 16. You shouldn't be a drinker, should you? But the club wanted to build me up. But what I've got to say is that you've got to gauge kids, and some kids can be late developers, some can be very quick, and so they're a lot bigger at the age and all that type of thing. And so as coaches, you've got to look at that, and especially with a scientific thing around football now, you do need to take that on board, because I feel that what you've got to do as a coach, you've got to look at the player and has he got the quickness of a football brain? Has he got great technique? Can he pass the ball? But if he goes into a physical challenge, no, he can't compete because the boys of his age are just that little bit big. So is he going to catch them up in 3-4 years? He's going to catch them up. You hope.
So you won't know, but you'll keep that player to give him the opportunity.
Well, for me, yes, you should keep that player because just because he's small, let's say 13, 14, at 17 he could be really big. I mean, we've got a player at Man United who's a perfect example of that, Scott McTominay. Scott McTominay, at sort of 16, he was really struggling with his fit, and he wasn't very tall, wasn't very strong. And then all of a sudden you look at him now, he's 6'4", and he runs for fun, and so he was just late in his development. So you've got to look at that type of thing. But the main thing as well is, it's like I say to scouts who come into Man United, what are we looking for at Man United? We're looking at quickness of brain. Do they need to take 1 touch, 2 touches, or do they need to take 5 touches all the time? The players who can play 1 touch, 2 touch, and have a quick brain, they're the ones who usually go on to really make it right at the top. So that's a thing that you've got to look at, especially with kids, because you don't want to discard a kid who's got brilliant attributes, but then all of a sudden he doesn't develop because of his size.
A guy like Paul Scholes been left behind because of that as well?
No, Scholes. It's 16 Scholes. He had all that. He played 1-touch football, 2-touch football. In fact, it was funny because I played in the youth team. You were allowed 1 over-age player, and I played with the class of '92. I played with them when I was captain at United, and they were all about 17. And Robbie Savage was up front, and Scholes, he played just behind him. And then you had Bex on the right, Giggsy on the left, me and Nicky Bull in the centre of midfield. And so I'm playing to get fit for the next first team match. And so we're playing away, and this goalkeeper knocked the ball out to the left back. Robbie Savage would go, and he'd sprint across to get close the left back down. He'd go bang into the centre half. Robbie Savage, whoosh, run across, goes to the right back. Robbie Savage, whoosh, running, chasing down to try and close people down. Scholes, he'd just sit in the hole. Then they'd try and play a forward pass. And most times that I played with the boys, we won like 4 or 5 now. they play the forward pass. We win it, you go bang into Scholesy go through, bang, 1-0. Robbie Savage had been doing all this. Scholesy's just sitting in the hole, using his head, and when he got on the ball, bang, create something and score a goal.
As captain, you were a mentor to these young players, and that's, I think that's something that along the way that was identified. What kinds of things could you make them aware of as they were moving their way into the first team?
Well, I've got to say, when I came through the ranks at West Brom, West Bromwich Albion, I'm sure everybody will have heard of them and everything like that, but I had some great senior pros at that club, and I was the only young one coming through, and they looked after me unbelievable. They were so good, advice, and talking about you've got to be tough and mentally strong if you want to be a top player, and so they were great. So because of everything they taught me at West Brom, when I went into Manchester United, and then especially when Ron Atkinson made me captain, like I'm looking at all these young talent coming through, and you go, right, I've got to get grip of them along with the boss, and you've got to make sure that they do everything correct, because I had so much talent. But you know, I look back and yeah, I had talent, but talk about work hard, have a great team camaraderie, and then the ability to be able to do it. But you know what they all had? Mental strength. They were unbelievable mental strength, and had a belief in their own ability that they could go on to be top players. And so you have got to look at players as well. You know, do they have a strong mentality to go on and play at the highest level?
Did you ever talk about that with any of them, or you're identifying that with how they might have developed that themselves? Was it their upbringing, where they came from?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of both. You know, you come from maybe parents and coaches who were tough. Eric Harrison was definitely tough and a hard taskmaster, the way he brought all of those boys up. But they brought it out themselves as well, so they were quite fortunate that all of them were together. But they had this thing about just a winning mentality. But no, along the way, quite a few times, Gary Neville, Bex, they chat to you about, you know, what do I need to do, what do I need to learn, and so they were always sort of picking your brain about it. And you know, for me, if you've got the ability, the main things to look for in kids, and say, right, are they willing to come in all the time, practice, and so until you perfect it near enough, are you going to pack in? When you're doing running, are you going to try and improve yourself, or as soon as it starts hurting, I'm going to stop? And so you're looking for all these characteristics in kids that, okay, you don't run them into the ground, but you encourage them to be the best they can be. So can they be fitter in every way? How much do they practice at weaknesses, not strengths? Because I think sometimes people get carried away that if you've got a kid who knows he's really good at one thing, he'll keep doing that all the time. But can you change his mentality and go, right, we know you're brilliant at that, but can you be brilliant at the thing which you're weak at? You know, and you can catch kids out that way. Not that you want to catch them out, but they go, all of a sudden they think about it, and they go, yeah, I can improve on that. And now it's up to them to go away when you've done a coaching clinic with them or whatever, they've seen how you want them to do it, and now are they going to go away and practice that themselves? So that's all part and parcel of being the top player.
When you look at the modern game of players, is there a weakness that you see? Is there a consistency of a particular weakness that you notice in players from week in and week out, whether it's from a club or someone else?
In today's game, what I don't like is the sort of, because you get booked and you get sent off for like trivial things, players will simulate dying and the roll about that they're injured quite badly. But it's not that they're injured quite badly, it's because they just want the referee to pick up. If I roll over 4 times, I'll boot the player or send them off. And I think players have got to get a little bit, like we were too far the other way in my days. I like the way the top players and the skillful players have protected that little bit more, because that's what fans want to see. They want to see great goals, they want to see tricks, they want to see entertaining football. They don't want to see somebody just kick somebody. But there's the other part of that where there's a lot of fans who love a smashing 50-50 challenge, and it excites the fans and gets everybody going. So
That's why they say he's my hero, I think, maybe what they're referring to. Those were your tackles, right?
Yeah, I did like the tackle.
But you mentioned Beckham earlier, and you said Bryan Robson is the player I want to be. So I interrupted you, so finish that thought. But what was he talking about? What player did he want to be?
Well, Bex could never tackle like me. But there again, I couldn't take free kicks like he took free kicks, so there's a balancing act there. But Bex, I was his mum's favourite player. And that's why I think I became his favourite player, because he had to. Because his mother told him he had to. But no, I mean, David, if we just go on one individual like that, I look back when he was 17, he was unbelievable at the training ground. You'd be sitting having your lunch after finishing training with the first team, and he was the kid who was out there, and he'd have mannequins, set it all up, no goalkeeper, and he'd have a bag of balls, 12 balls, and he'd just put them down, and he'd just keep practicing, and he'd practice that for like 20 minutes every day, 30 minutes every day, until he sort of perfected how he was going to take a free kick. So that's the dedication that you have to have within the game if you want to become the best and you really want to improve at certain things there. So Bex had that, but I'm sure he kept coming out with I was his favourite player, is because in them days as an apprentice you had to clean the boots, clean the dressing room, all that type of thing. And Bex had heard that because I was a record transfer fee, I give the biggest tip at Christmas to the lad who cleans your boot all season. And so that's why Bex, I think, said that, and he wanted to clean my boots because he knew he was going to get the best tip. Yeah. In them days, like, we had quite a few Irish and Scottish lads in the team. I'm not going to name the names, but they were tight.
Can I ask you just about your style and play in the midfield? When I read about how you play and watch video, you were the box-to-box midfielder before we really refer to it in that manner, it seems. But how do you describe your own play as to relate to coaches?
No, well, I always wanted to be an all-round player because at school I was always a midfield player who scored a lot of goals. So I knew I could do that. So when I went into the professional game, I just wanted to be far better at defending because I knew I could do the attacking side of it. So it's a bit like I said about, sometimes kids always want to work on what they're really good at because they can go, hey, I'm really good at this. But it's what they're bad at. Can you improve them? And then as an all-round player, they can be better. The other thing which I think now, which I don't particularly agree with, but there again, you've got some top coaches in the world who do that. I don't want to categorise myself as being a defensive midfield player. I'd far sooner be a box-to-box player who's got loads of energy, who can get forward, attack, create goals, score goals. But I want to be able to defend and help me defend out and keep clean sheets. And so as a central midfield player, I want to do both of them. I think as a right winger, a right back, if you can get a great understanding with each other, can you both mix it up? So then the right back is really good at overlapping, developing across, creating things, but can he be a really good defender? That right winger who's in front of you, you're the one who should be creating. But if he's playing against a really good left winger and he needs help, can you help him to protect him? And so it's a matter of balancing up as a team. Can you help your teammate out as well as just help yourself out? So I think when kids are 14, 15, it's a bit too early. Let them enjoy the football, encourage them, give them sort of great little drills and everything where they're improving the technique, the tackling, all that sort of thing. But once they sort of like get to 15, 16, can you now start introducing, right, this is a role you've got to play within the team. This is what I want you to try and do. I always look at Dutch players. For me, my favourite players are the Brazilians because they've always had great technique and they're hard as nails. They are tough, the Brazilians, when you play against them. So they do great. But the Dutch, I like the way their coaches rotate. So especially at Ajax go, right, this is a system we're playing, but they don't play the same player when they're kids. Because what they want people to understand different positions. And it does educate you and makes you a better player. If you can understand, right, if I'm playing left back today, what does my centre half want? What do I want from my left side player? What do I want from my left side midfield player? So you get a better understanding of, if you're playing in that position, what do I want from my teammates?
And if in mobility, you might end up in certain positions on the field during the run of play, where you need to diagnose what's going on just because you're in that position.
Exactly right. I learned that at West Brom. I don't know if everybody can remember Johnny Giles. He was manager, he was a great player, central midfield player, great passer of the ball. But Johnny Giles, he played me everywhere. I played centre half, I played left back, played left wing, played central midfield. The only place I didn't play, or two places, was centre forward and in goal. There's the only two places that I didn't play. But when I look back on that period of time when I was playing in the Premiership with him, it educated me in the all part of the game and you understand the game that little bit better because you played in all the positions.
You scored 99 goals, 461 appearances for United, all out of the midfield. As you said, you didn't play center forward.
No, so Alex wanted me to play. He was thinking of going a sweeper system, and he wanted me to play a sweeper. I played a couple of games there, and I just went to the boss and went, I don't get enough involvement in the game. I says, like, can you not put somebody else there and put me back in midfield? So he tried Incy, and Incy had a beast, and they got beat 4-0 against Norwich. So the boss went, I think we're going to bin that.
What were the key elements of you scoring those goals? What were some of the things that you were able to read, the technical finishing ability, those sorts of things?
Well, I look back and, you know, when I went to Manchester United, I did at West Brom, but when I went to Manchester United, Norman Whiteside, Frank Stapleton, Mark Hughes and myself, after training, we'd stay first, so only 20 minutes, but after training we would practice, so like shooting, then we'd have a few crosses and practicing finishing on the head, that sort of thing. So I think that had a bearing on it, because it's like I said earlier, you've got to practice if you want to be really good at things. So it was more or less a case of that, but I always felt I just had a natural time, and a little bit like Paul Scholes. If you're running from midfield and you're going to arrive in the box, it's your timing about when people are going to put the ball in, and are you going to arrive just as the ball was. And if you're lucky enough and the ball's in your area, you've got a chance of scoring the goal. If you're too early, the ball's going to be behind you. If you're too late, the ball could be in front and it just goes out for a throw-in. So your timing is really important of how you join in.
Do you feel like you had that innate ability, or was it from practicing repetition in certain situations?
No, that sort of came a bit natural to me, where, you know, I could just run into the box and join in and sort of score goals. So it was, but you can sort of learn people of that a little bit. So it's like if a midfield player is marking you and the ball goes to the width, if you just keep sprinting straight away, the defender reacts, and so the defender who's marking you will just go, right, I've got to stay with him, and he'll do. If you start walking, now all of a sudden he goes, he's walking, he's not interested in getting forward, and so next minute you go, which, because he's walking, now you maybe get a run on him, and now you might get a goal, because you've told yourself, right, he's walking, he looks out at the ball, and you're looking at him doing that, and now you go, right, I'm going to sprint beyond him now. And so you try and catch people unaware of that.
All those games that you played with Manchester United, I'm sure you've been asked this before, but I'm going to ask you again. Can you pick out one or two moments? And it's the moments where you had the biggest smile, the greatest feeling, the glance up to your family, whatever it was. What was it?
There's two great moments for me. In 1991, under Sir Alex, when we beat Barcelona in the European Cup Winners' Cup final in Rotterdam, we beat them 2-1. They were sort of 3-1 on favourites to beat us, but we just played really well on the night, and we'd been banned for 5 years from Europe, all the British clubs, and so to go and beat a team like Barcelona 2-1 on that evening, and that was a great one-off moment. And I have got to say, the boss, so when I say the boss, it's always Alex, by the way. And so Sir Alex always used to say to us, you know what, he didn't want you to drink, he wanted you to look after yourself really well. He says, but if you ever win anything, you've got to celebrate as a team. And we celebrated unbelievable. That was the best party I've ever had after that game. So, no, that was a great memory, you know, to win a European Cup competition against some of the best teams. That was brilliant.
You said the odds were 3-1?
They were 3-1 on, yeah, so we were like 3.
Anybody ever, when you got back into town, people come up to you and say, thanks man, I had some money on that game, that was excellent, man. No?
No, but that is a good question though. Yeah, but I mean, Barcelona proved how good of a team they were, because the next season they went on to win the Champions League. Yeah, you know, so they were a great team. So it was really good performance by us to beat them. But then 92, 93, when we won the Premier League title, you know, for me, that was a great season for us, because everybody was saying, oh, it's 24 years, it's 25 years, and you haven't won the title. So to actually do that, and Samantha Busby was still alive, it was brilliant to actually achieve that while he was alive, and just to go on and get them in shackles around your neck, because he'd never won it for 26 years.
And that was the first year of the now Premier League.
Yeah, nobody can ever take that away from you. You were the first team to win the Premier League title.
Yeah.
So.
And then you won back-to-back. So your last 2 years with United, you captained the Premier League champions, yes?
Yeah, it was a great end to my career, if there's ever such a thing as that. Because, yeah, we won the title in 92, 93, and then 93, 94, we won the double. So we won the FA Cup and the Premier League. So it was a great way to end my career with United. But I always said to Sir Alex, I thought you might give me one more year. And he went, no, I'm bringing all the kids through. He says, and I need to clear the debt. So I always remind him now, even. And he hates it, and he slaps me around the head. Because I went to Borough as a player manager, and we won the championship title, and I got promoted, and United won nothing that year. He hates it.
You're the captain, and you have these conversations with Sir Alex. I think the relationship you two had, because didn't he come to you when Roy Keane, there was a consideration of him coming to the club, as someone who would perhaps replace you, and you told Sir Alex, pay whatever is necessary to get that guy in. Is that accurate?
Yeah. What happened is, I always wanted to go into coaching or management, and the boss knew that, and so I was always really early into the training ground, because I dropped the girls off at school and so on. You didn't have to be until like 10 o'clock, because you dropped the kids off. I was always in really early, and so the boss would go, look, you can come up to the coach's room and sit and listen to how we prepare everything, you know, for training, and listen to the conversation. So this morning we were in the coach's room, and they were talking about Keeney, and a couple of the coaches were going, whoa, that sort of money and that sort of thing. And then a couple of the coaches were going, no, definitely a team. And I just said, Gavin, I'm sitting having my cup of tea. I says, and I know you're talking to the coaches. I says, but nah, I'd pay that in a minute. I says, I've played against him. The kid is a decent player. Well, that's why he sold me the next season. Keeney and Incy were in the midfield. They were 21 and 22. But it was funny because, like, for me, I always say this story when I do after dinner speaking, because Keeney and Incy, they were both really aggressive, and I tell you what, both absolute top players, but they had this aggression about them. And so Incy always wanted to be called the governor because he was hard as nails. Keeney, Irishman, like everybody knew he liked his boxing, he's hard as nails. And so in training now and again, like, I'm 10 years older than them and experiencing calm down that, because if they were on the opposite side, well, they were wiring into each other, and you're going, hey, with teammates and all that, everybody wants to be fit for the weekend. And so you chat like that. So we go in the dressing room, and Incy's Mr. Angry with Keeney, Keeney's Mr. Angry with Incy. And so when either Keeney or Incy went up to the dining room, I'd just go, "Right, Incy, look at, we know you and Keeney, one of you wants to be the hardest. Look at, all the lads know you're the hardest. There's no problem. We all know you call the governor, you're the hardest, okay? So just settle down." So then, as he's like, all that, I go up into the dining room area, get a cup of tea, go and sit with Keeney. Keeney, you and Incy, at heads. Look at, all the lads know you're the hardest. Just calm down with it all, like your teammates. So I used to do that every so often.
Great managerial tactics, right? But I think it speaks to your admiration for the club that you, this going back to Keane and saying, pay whatever you need, that you probably had a notion that might be, could lead to your demise or transfer or lack of playing time.
Yeah, but to be fair, I was 37, and so I'd had a good career in the Premier League, and I just thought I'd had the offer from Middlesbrough to be player manager. Dropping down into the Championship, everybody sees it's a tough league to get out of, which it is, but if you've got decent players and you've played in the Premiership all your life, to drop down in the Championship, it is that bit easier. And so the next season I played 38 games, when we won the title. And so it is a bit of a different game, but no, I mean, like, for me, the thing that I've always tried to do with United is be honest, and you just try and help the club as much as you can, because they've always been brilliant with me, and the fans have always been brilliant with me.
We talked about you being the captain of those last 2 years and winning the title. What was it about the team specifically that and the club that really garnered the success in that period?
Well, Sir Alex brought in a lot of really good young players, people like Gary Pallister, Incy, then Keeney. But I think what Lee Sharp, Ryan Giggs was coming through the ranks there. So, but what that team had, it had a great mentality. So if any team tried to kick us off the park, no chance, they couldn't do it. If people wanted to play really good football and play that way, we were quite happy to do that because we thought we could play them off the park. So the team had a really great balance of toughness, pace, stamina, but then a will to win. So it was a great camaraderie, and then, to be fair, Cantona was the last piece in the jigsaw, because we knew we had all the qualities which I've just talked about, but then Cantona came in and Eric just had this presence, and I think some of the opposition was sort of like in awe of him. But Eric was a great lad as well, though, and he got on really well. And he said he said to me quite a few times, Bryan, this is why I came to England to play football. He says, the French, he says, no team spirit. He says, England, he says, everybody's together. He says, and we all fight together. He says, and that's what I want. Now, since he said that to me, France has been in like 3 World Cup finals. So I'm not sure whether Eric can make a good manager.
What did you carry with you to Middlesbrough? Well, first of all, player manager. That intrigues me. How do you do that? And how do you critique yourself? Or how do you talk to yourself?
It was, well, what I had to do, I had to get the staff in behind me correct. And so I played with Viv Anderson with England. He was manager of Barnsley at the time, and I asked Viv to go and be assistant. And to be fair, with him being the manager, I was surprised when he said yes. So he came as my assistant manager, but then I had a guy who nobody would have heard of, but he was a really good, experienced coach who was already at Middlesbrough, and he was my first team coach. So I put that in behind me because I knew I'd keep on top of my fitness, and so there's no way you could do a manager's role, all the roles, and be fit enough or fresh enough to be a player as well. So
How many matches did you play
that year? I played 38. Yeah, and so, but what I said to the players as well, and they had quite a few good experienced players in Middlesbrough at the time, and then I brought about 5 players in from the Premiership into a Championship team, and I knew they were good pros. A couple of them were sort of like friendly with me, so I knew. But the first thing I said when I sat all the players down, I went, right, I says, you all know my reputation. I says, if you're not doing something right, I'll be having a go and a half at you. I says, and don't be getting upset if I'm hammering you. I says, because I'm just used to doing that at Man United. I says, but what I'm giving you license to, even though I'm manager, when we're on the pitch and you're players, if you see I don't do something right and you want to have a right go, as long as you have a right go at me in the right way, I'll take that on board, and it doesn't mean I'm going to drop you because
Did anybody take you up on that, really?
No, nobody ever did. No.
So you put it out there.
Because otherwise it would have been sold. But they weren't to do that.
And before we close, I want to ask you about the current team, and in particular the manager, Erik ten Hag. What have you made of his impact on the squad this far?
Look, we went to Australia pre-season training. I'd never met the guy before. I'd seen his record. When Richard Arnold, the chief exec, brought him in, and you're thinking, right, where's he from? We went to Australia, and so when you're on pre-season tour, you get to go to watch all the training sessions. You get to have a cup of tea with the manager and his staff. And I was really impressed with him. And he was quite disciplined with the players in pre-season, which you have to be as a manager. But just
in what way? What's an example? It could be discipline. What do you mean?
Stop training because a few people are being a bit lazy, or they're doing it in a fun way instead of a serious way. Stop training. Talk to them about what he expected, but then players being just a little bit late for certain things, but not having that, doesn't even play them in the forthcoming game when he was going to play them. But they're indisciplined. But, so me and Dennis Irwin, we were over some pre-season trips, me and Dennis go, this is exactly what these lot needed.
It sounds very much like Sir Alex. Well, doesn't it?
Yeah, he would never allow you away with things like that.
And Marcus Rashford felt the wrath of being late, did he not?
Yeah, but you know what? So the manager gets great credit for that. But the one thing I've got to say, Marcus Rashford, I loved his reaction as well. So he took it on the chin. The manager left him out, put him on the bench. But when he was called on to come on into the game, he won United the game against Wolves. So that's the response you want from your players if they're going to be really good professionals. You know, but no, the manager, the discipline, I've seen him set out training sessions on the pitch, and the players know exactly what they've got to do. And so I think Man United are going exactly the right way. Since Richard Arnold's come in, I think the signings and the sort of the protocol to how you sign a player has become a lot better. And that's why Martinez, Malassi, Eriksson, Casemiro, you know, they've all been really good buys and they've done really well this season. So what we've got to do in the summer, January, when with this fair play and how much money you've spent, it was really difficult for the club to do business. But in the summer, hopefully we can turn a few things around and add a couple of more top draw players, and I think we're going to get closer to challenging for the title again.
So the club's in good hands with Ten Hag.
I think the club's in good hands with Richard Arnold and Ten Hag. Yeah, I do. I think we're in a good place.
How about Old Trafford? Can you hear the difference this year when you're at the matches? Can you feel it?
Yes, the fans, when you look at it as well, I mean, we started off, I saw how well we played in pre-season training in Australia, and we won every game, and we come back, we have Brighton at home, and you go, here we go, right, looking forward to this, 2-0 defeat. Oh my God, wheels have fallen off already. Then we go to Brentford, 4-0, and you go, oh, I didn't see this coming. But you know what, I think for some of the signings and some of the players, and especially the manager and his staff, I think one of the best results for us was Brentford beating us 4-0, because all of a sudden they've gone, wow, this is what the Premiership is all about. And you can have really tough games away from home, physical sides, and you know exactly how they're going to play. And I think that's helped us to really respond and start doing okay.
And that leads me to the final question. You're the Manchester United ambassador, so what would you say to anyone thinking about traveling to Manchester United, experience the development, but also just being at Old Trafford?
Well, at Old Trafford, I mean, we still get 75,000 sellout crowds every week. I mean, it's a great trip. Taking in the museum, which has got to be probably the best football museum in the world. So, you know, that's brilliant. But it's the atmosphere. And if you're lucky enough to get to a City game or a Liverpool game, the big games, then obviously the atmosphere is so much better than the lesser games, because the lesser games, the fans are sitting there going, well, we should win this today. Now, hold on a minute, can we get behind the team and get them up? But the players have got to show that as well. So, no, but yeah, you know, it's a great experience. And then Manchester as a city is growing all the time as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I've lived there now 35 years. You know, and people say, well, London is the main city, Birmingham's second city. I don't know if we've got Birmingham But nah, Manchester's second city now.
And you're in the museum, right? What's depicted about you in the museum if we go visit?
No, well, it was a great honour. You know, the club to turn around and say to me, it was the 30th anniversary from when I'd signed with the club, and they said, would I put a lot of my memorabilia into the museum, and they'll just do one sort of part of the museum for that. And they said they were going to do it for 12 months, but now it's went on to 18 months and that. So, no, I mean, that's a proud moment for me, coming from Chesley Street up in the northeast. As a boy, to have your own sort of part of the museum. You know, you never dream of something like that when you were a kid.
You have a picture of you signing the contract on the pitch?
No. It's because, no, the reason why I don't particularly have that is because I go after dinner speaking, and when people ask about what's the difference between players of today, and I go, oh, wearing pink boots, like the first thing I do is boo you if I'm playing somewhere you with. And this guy once, this dinner, he went, hold on a minute, Bryan, he says, when you had the perm, he says, how did you get the perm? And I'm going, yeah, sitting hairdressers with curlers in. And I'm thinking, would I boot myself?
Bryan Robson, everyone.